do something you're very passionate about.
People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing, and it's totally true. And the reason is because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up.
So just go and do it, try, learn from it. You'll fail at some things. That's a learning experience that you need so that you can take that on to the next experience.
People that look for great ideas to make money.
Good evening. I'm Rotaract Tarusha Jayasundara from Rotaract Club of Colombo City. Initiative by Rotaract Club of Colombo Mid-City to bring together bright minds provoke conversations that matter to reach, educate, gain awareness among young professionals and students from the local community together to inspire them to face future challenges and adapt accordingly. Therefore, we connect with business professionals, entrepreneurs and change makers because we believe their voice will be beneficial to everyone in Rotaract and beyond. Current COVID-19 situation has caused some major changes in every industry, has affected every professional in different ways. We have to rebuild and restructure our lives and business in new and unforeseen ways. We have to be prepared to face the challenges of the immediate future. We Sri Lankans are reputed for our resilience, but we can't do this alone. We need to support one another and start by each other. Today, we have a special guest with us. He is the co-founder of Digitally, which is a transformative digital solution providing company that helps organizations conceptualize, strategize, and drive their digital transformation journeys. He has 8+ years of total experience in the implementation of business critical solutions and leading all phases of diverse technology and customer service projects. During his 8-year career, he has worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies and also largest IT and IT consulting company in Sri Lanka. He has an honours degree in information technology and has earned his MBA from Angela Ruskin University in UK. He is Mr. Ruchira Dasanayake. Mr. Ruchira Dasanayake, we are warmly welcome you to our program. As a business professional and entrepreneur, how you have evolved to this pandemic? Can we have a quick answer before we are moving to the questions?
So it has been a difficult time for all of us, right? From the start of March until now. Although things have lessened up, but things have been difficult, right? From March, and it was unexpected. So there were a lot of changes that we had to do, a lot of things that we have to do to ensure that we manage the situation, right? Even if you take the company that I work for, right? There were so much of things that were planned, that was in the roadmap that needed to happen. So if you take my own company, we had to expedite a lot of the things that we had on the roadmap to ensure that we do a quality service for our customers, right? So there were a lot of changes that we brought in place, and we had to streamline a lot of processes to ensure that there is no disruption of services to our customers and that we continue to provide the good service that we were providing even before the pandemic. So there was a lot of hours spent, right? Just as soon as the pandemic hit, we got onto calls, we started brainstorming, we put the best ideas forward and we implemented most of them within a few weeks.
So, according to you, what are the immediate short-term effects that are beyond our power of control?
Well, as soon as the pandemic hit, there were a lot of rules and regulations that were brought in place to curtail the spread of the COVID-19 virus, right? There were a lot of stringent curfews that were put in place, and that affected a lot of businesses as well as a lot of people who were in employment in those businesses. So one of the main short-term effects that people and businesses had was mainly the salary cuts, right? There were a lot of reductions in salaries that took place. So there were cascading effects because of that as well, right? So the people's buying power, it went down drastically. And also there were stringent measures taken to close off the airports. So there were a lot of salary reductions that were put in place onto a lot of people, and that reduced the buying power of people quite drastically. So that was one of the main short-term effects that this pandemic is going to have. So as businesses revive themselves, things are going to improve, right? But because of the salary reductions, the loss of jobs, the buying power of the people have also gone down. So that will have a cascading effect on a lot of things as well. A lot of the other businesses will also suffer because of that. So, and also the airport closures, right? So there won't be any inbound travel that will be happening. The exports will be reduced as well. So there'll be a lot of similar short-term effects that will affect the economy as well as people's livelihoods. When it comes to adapting to this new normalcy, right? So we need to understand that things have changed, right? Things have changed a lot. So we need to ensure that whatever funds that we have, especially now during this period, money has become very important, right? So and especially if you look at this lower middle class of people, that segment, so a lot of them have been mainly affected from this pandemic, not the upper class per se, right? But this lower middle class has had a huge impact because of the pandemic, and money has a big say. So the main normalcy now is to save money as much as possible, right? Whatever that they have, and also try to innovate, try to find a second source of income that will help them sustain. So that has become the new normalcy right now. That's what I feel.
A lot of changes have happened in business environment, also in people's lives. According to you, what effects will the crisis have on long-term business environment?
Well, what I see is that businesses that did not innovate, right, they have had to close down or they have suffered in a major way, right? But businesses that were able to innovate, that were able to change according to the situation, have thrived, right? So if you take a lot of businesses, right, like manufacturing and maybe apparel, construction, tourism, right, they've had a big hit. They've been declining in their revenues, and but these new entrepreneurs coming in, the new businesses coming in the digital space, in the IT space, have been thriving, right? So long term, as time goes by, right, there could be a second wave as well. We don't know whether that's going to happen, that might materialize or not, right? But as time goes by, right, so businesses need to start innovating to sustain in the long term. If they don't innovate, if they stay in the same thought process, if they try to do the businesses in the old methodology, it's not going to work. So it's very important that businesses start looking at innovating now, right? With this pandemic or different strain of virus or something else might happen, right? So these last 2 years, let's say from 2019, 2020, we've been hit from the East attacks, then this COVID-19 virus. So there has been a lot of impact onto our economy because of these two major events. So we can't really say that in 2021 there might not be such a major event that might affect our economy again. So people need to look at how they need to thrive in these difficult situations and try to innovate, go more digital, right? So that's one area I think we are lacking in Sri Lanka, going digital, right? There are a few companies that do it really well, but then again there are a lot of these small, medium enterprises and businesses which can truly explore or utilize the power of social media and going digital.
We can see that global readers are also struggling in this pandemic. As Sri Lankans, we are trying our best to overcome this situation and going forward. So let's move to our next question. What do you think about starting a new business at this current time?
Well, it depends on what sort of business that you want to start, right? So there are some businesses that will thrive in this economy and in this day of time, but there are some businesses that will have a much more difficult time, right? So for example, if you take an IT business right now, since most of the businesses or most companies are now looking at going digital, right? Opening up their own applications, websites and all that. So in the IT sector, I think it's going to be really good, right? And it's quite easy to set up an IT infrastructure as well. As a startup, it's not that difficult, right? But then again, there are businesses like if you're planning to start a restaurant or a hotel, so with all the stringent guidelines, so it's going to be difficult. But then again, now the government is also looking at giving in easier loans with better loan rates. Then they're looking at tax concessions. Even the rent has gone down in most of the parts of Sri Lanka. So in a way, it's easier to start a business right now rather than before the pandemic hit. So it's kind of easy, but it's about seeing how it's going to sustain even after you start the business. People need to be buying your product or services. So there are certain services that are in demand at the moment and certain services that are not, right? Certain marketplaces which are really crowded. If you take restaurants, right, apparel, even tourism, right? It's a very crowded market. It's there everywhere, and people's interests are not in that right now. So people's or businesses, they are looking into IT services, different ways of automating things so that they don't have to depend on human capital, right? So IT, web development, IT services is a good industry that you can get into. But overall, I think after the pandemic, it's easier to start a business than it was before. But people should carefully analyze and see what businesses they should start and what businesses they shouldn't start, right? What a lot of people in Sri Lanka, what they do is that they have a certain passion, right? Okay, I need to start my own clothes shop, I need to start my own restaurant, but that might not be the ideal thing to do at this particular situation. So you need to adapt to the situation if you're going to start a business. Just because the opportunity is there, but if the market is not right, you should not be starting that particular business. So in a whole, it's a good time to start a business, but carefully choose the market which you need to get into.
So as you mentioned, some businesses are going to be successful, some are not. So we have to identify the market very carefully and adapt according to that. So according to you, what are the emerging industries in post-pandemic and what are the industries that will face a big loss?
Right, so emerging industries, like I mentioned earlier, IT and web services has big upside potential right now, as well as the healthcare industry, right? Also cleaning and sanitary services, so they will have quite a upside potential as well as platforms or like services on online teaching, online learning will have a huge upside potential and will be able to do quite well post-pandemic as well. So when it comes to businesses that will have challenges, even if you look at currently from March onwards, so from the figures and from all the details that we have, what we've identified, the three main industries that have had impact is tourism, apparel and construction, right? So when it comes to apparel and most of the exports, right, nearly about 45% of our exports go to USA, and it's one of the most badly hit countries as well. So I think our exports total to about 5 billion USD, right? But I think in the first 3 months after the pandemic hit, we had a loss of about 1,400 million USD. So that's quite a big hit, right? So those are three industries I think would have major challenges in bouncing back, right? Because customers don't take them as essential services as well, right? So if you take tourism as well, so with the airports being closed, right, there won't be a lot of tourists coming in from the other countries. Even if after the airport is opened up, people will be very skeptical about traveling, e-learning because the chances of contracting the viruses are high. So there will be quite a bit of losses in tourism as well, and tourist companies now need to focus on inbound customers or local customers more rather than the outside the foreigners. But I think those three are some major industries that will be hit, and also these other tour operators, right? So since there are no outbound travel and people not going on holidays, these tour operators will also face major problems. So what we've seen across the last few months is majority of the people who are working in that industry have lost their jobs and are suffering so much. So it will be a difficult period for them, and bouncing back will also be quite difficult for them.
You mentioned that e-learning, online learning will be a big hit in the future. So will COVID-19 lead to reform the education systems by integrating a module dedicated to distance learning or e-learning in school curriculum?
At this moment, I don't think so. The reason why I say that is I don't think our infrastructure is set up in such a way that we can implement e-learning as a part of the curriculum across the entire country, right? So if you take Colombo or the metropolitan areas across our island, then few people will be able to utilize that service, but majority of the population will not be able to have the luxury of having laptops, a proper internet connection, right, to do this e-learning. So it will be very difficult to roll these initiatives out. So first what we need to look at is, we need to look at how we can provide these resources on to each family or each student, and then see how we can introduce these e-learning facilities. You see, now next year we might have another pandemic. We don't know if there's going to be a second wave, but if there is a second wave, what are we going to do? Are we going to close down schools for another 5 months, right? So it's not really going to work. So the governments, everyone will need to look at how we are going to look at how we educate our children, right, better, right? So with this pandemic, we've realized that classrooms are not the way of the future. We need to look at how we can utilize the power of the internet. But what this pandemic has also done is shown us the disparity between the different levels of classes in the society right now. So there was already issues where the lower income families were, the children from those families were finding it difficult, right, to compete with these high income children from the high income families, because the higher class people, they were being offered better facilities, better opportunities, right? Those opportunities are not available for these lower income families. So that disparity was also there. But during this COVID period, that was showcased even more, right? Because nearly most of the schools started doing this e-learning, having the teaching sessions over Zoom, over Microsoft Teams and all that. But then those families that were not able to afford a laptop, a computer, a proper internet connection, they were being left out, right? So what they were previously receiving, even though it was little, now they were not receiving anything at all. So what we first need to do is, we need to first set up the infrastructure in Sri Lanka to sustain e-learning, right? Only once that infrastructure is set up, right, the government definitely needs to get involved, right? The education ministry, they need to get involved. Once that infrastructure is set up, then we look at e-learning as a whole, right, rolling it out across the island. But otherwise, what's going to happen is it's just going to be concentrated to the metropolitan area, the good schools, right? But it will not move on to the other areas, the rural areas, and the lower income families. So that's something that we need to look at. But immediately, I don't think e-learning will be part of the curriculum.
As Mr. Ruchira mentioned, we have to focus on improving our infrastructure first before moving into e-learning. In this current situation, businesses are struggling, but they are trying to overcome this situation. So, how can businesses deliver better outcomes in this current situation, and what they can do to remain competitive?
Right. So the main integral part of a business is its employees, right? So you need to have the employees' best interest at heart, right? So you need to manage your employees better, right? It's a difficult time. Sometimes you might have to cut down on their salaries, but even though, make sure that you look at the welfare of the employees, right? If you keep them happy, content, if you make them understand that there is this situation and this is why we are doing what we have to do, then they will understand. But always talk to them, speak to them, keep them happy, right? Make sure that they deliver, because you need your employees to run your business. They are the main component of your business, right? Second thing is communication. When it comes to your stakeholders as well as your employees, make your communication very clear. If you can't deliver something within the stipulated time or according to budget or whatever particular reason, you need to tell them, okay, this is why we can't do it, okay, this is why we can do it beforehand. Whatever it is, you need to have very clear-cut communication. Don't beat around the bush. Make sure that you communicate everything very clearly. Next thing is keep your expenses in check and budget. This pandemic has shown us why we should always have a risk assessment. We always need to assess our risks and have contingency plans. So one of the main things is expenses, right? So during this pandemic, there are still salaries that you have to pay, but there is no flow of income. So you need to have cash in your bank, cash at hand that you need to manage. If you need to take a loan from a bank, then you need to show your assets and take that particular loan. But you need to keep all your expenses at check, right? You need to constantly be on that, on your financials of your business, and make sure that you do not overgo your budget or overflow your budget. If it looks like that you're going to do that, then you sit down with your team, or you sit down and then see how you can overcome it. So main key thing is communication, keeping your expenses in check, keeping your employees happy and content, right? Those are main key components, as well as look at how you can innovate. Like, it's very important that you innovate in this pandemic or even during this period of time, and you see what you can do differently to achieve better or achieve greater in your business. So those are key things that you need to do.
So what is your best advice you are giving to entrepreneurs, young professionals or students at this given time?
Never give up, right? That would be my advice to all of them, because you guys are very young, right? Young entrepreneurs, students, young professionals. There's so much of time ahead of you. This might be a difficult period, but it will not last forever, right? Especially if you take young entrepreneurs, you're doing something that most people are scared of. You have started your own venture, own business, right? You have gone past a very big hurdle in life. You're doing something of your own. So never give up on that. Make sure it will be difficult, right, at this moment, especially since you're young, your business is young, right? There's so much of hardships, there'll be so much of pressure coming in, you're low on cash and all that. But never give up, right? Try to innovate what you're doing, because this pandemic, although it has created a lot of hardships, it has created a lot of opportunities as well, right? You're young, you can take that chance as well. You have less responsibilities in your life. As time goes by, right, this goes for everyone, young professionals, students, entrepreneurs, all of them. As time goes by, your responsibilities will stack up, right? Your parents will get older, you need to take care of them. You will get married, you will have a wife, you will need to take care of your children. There will be so much of things. But this is the right age for you to experiment, right? There will be so much of things that you can do, experiment, and if that one thing clicked, if that one thing is successful, then that's it. You'd be happy for the entirety of your life. You're doing something that you love. You're building up your own baby, right? So it'll be something good. So never give up. Somehow sustain, right? Try to go digital as much as possible. Now, if you take today's scenario, you can manage any business digitally, right? Even if it's a restaurant, you can start delivering through different online platforms. Explore all the options, right? Even any business, any FMCG business, any clothing business, everything, right? So digital is just shooting up right now. Online social media platforms, websites, websites, all the stores, eBay, Amazon, everything, right? If you look at all these tech entrepreneurs who are well established, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, all of these people's wealth has more than doubled during this pandemic. That really shows the importance of going digital. So my advice to all these young entrepreneurs, students, and young professionals is never give up, right? And always keep building your skills. Don't stop on educating yourself. Keep building whatever skills that you think is necessary for you to go to the next level. Especially start looking at being tech savvy, all right? If you're doing accounts, still try to look at how you can incorporate IT into it. Because as we go forward, in the years to come, technology is going to play a huge part, right? Everything is going to be automated. There's going to be RPA going into all businesses, all streams of businesses. So it's very important that you have the knowledge, right? Just let's say, for example, like I mentioned, an accounting professional, it will not be enough for you just to know the numbers and all the theoretical details, but it will now be important for you to be technologically savvy as well. So never give up, start learning, skill up yourself. That's my advice.
Never give up. It's a very powerful word. We have seen over the years how people have struggled, but they have excelled because they have never given up. If we take as an example KFC, he has failed so many times, but at the age of 65, he succeeded because he never gave up. So, as the last question, what is your final message for all the industries and companies?
Well, what I would say is there are some companies which are doing really well during this pandemic, right? They've managed to do the correct thing and they've managed to get the dividends out of it. But for the others that haven't, that have struggled, what I would say is diversify. Right? Don't just stick to one line of business. Right? Look at evolving and opening up other channels of revenue as well. If you stick to just one channel of revenue, and if there's some issue like COVID, right? If some blocker happens, then you're going to lose that source of income. You're going to lose the revenue that you get from that particular stream. So look at diversifying and opening up multiple revenue streams, right? You are running a business. Let's say, for example, manufacturing plant. You're manufacturing plastic bottles. Don't just stick to plastic bottles. Look how you can diversify using your machinery, using your staff. Look how you can go on to other industries as well, right? You did plastic bottles now, but because of this particular industry, you will be doing some sort of plastic suit or plastic mask or something like that. That will generate income for you even during these trying times. So it's very important that you diversify, right? Even let's take for example IT industry, right? You might be into software development, but look at how you can diversify into web development, into SEO, things that are in demand at this particular moment. So always look at how you can change and open up multiple different revenue streams for your business, because in the future, if you are going to succeed, if you are going to thrive, you will need to have multiple revenue streams. Without that, if you just stick to one, then something is going to happen, right? Something along the way is going to happen and you will suffer because of that as a business. So look at diversifying, and importantly, most importantly, even more than before, look at how you treat or how you upskill your employees, right? Your employees are the core component of your business. Look at how you can train them and give them more skills so that the diversification of your business becomes easier. So those are, I think, key points that businesses should be looking at in the future.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ruchira Dasanayake, for your valuable time and sharing very valuable insight with us, how we can overcome these challenges and adapt to this situation. And we will see you in our next program.
Thank you for having me, Tarusha.
Thank you so much for watching our video and joining with us. See you in our next video.